So yesterday, the news comes out that the Raiders are going to bench Derek Carr. And I said something about how if they were to release him, which I don't know how this ends up playing out, we can get into that a little bit. Quarterbacks that are as good as Derek Carr just don't typically hit free agency. And so many people responded with like, Derek Carr sucks. I don't know what you're talking about. Okay. Quarterbacks aren't great or they suck. There is a middle ground of quarterback play. Derek Carr has led mostly like top 12 passing offenses, top 15 passing offenses for most of his career by DVOA. Before this season, the Raiders last year, they had some really good moments last year. They had some really good moments in 2020. And this idea that this season, because he had Devontae Adams, because they had this great running game, his play was disappointing. They had a great running game because they had Devontae Adams. The running game wasn't setting up the passing game. It was vice versa. Yes. So I think that there's just a lot of murkiness about how good of a quarterback Derek Carr is. I think we can all reasonably conclude that Derek Carr is probably somewhere between like the 12th and 16th best quarterback in the NFL. Say that's fair? I think that's totally still fair. The range that he probably exists in. Okay.
Totally fair.
And so a lot of people responded with, yeah, they're not terrible or great, but when you have to pay them like they're terrible or great, then it kind of muddies the picture and colors why you'd want a quarterback like Derek Carr and what that does to your team building plan. I want to talk about this a little bit because I think in a vacuum, that is true. Okay. If you can start with a rookie quarterback contract or lock yourself into a guy making $35, $40 million a year, I can understand wanting to go the rookie quarterback contract route. If you are the Indianapolis Colts, okay, and you currently have the 5th pick in this draft, I don't think you should go after Derek Carr on the trade market or in free agency. Right. I think you should go get yourself a rookie quarterback contract and weaponize that rookie quarterback contract. But not every team is operating from the same starting point. Nope. If you are the New York Jets right now, or the Washington football team right now, and you are going to be picking somewhere between probably 15 and 20, and you have an otherwise very good roster, and both of those teams can free up about $40 million in cap space pretty easily this offseason. I think where you're at in your team building process, a guy like Derek Carr makes a decent amount of sense for a lot of different reasons. And we can get into those reasons, but it was just strange to me that people would immediately dismiss this out of hand. I want to hear your response first, but then we can kind of talk about some of the layers of this.
No, I'm with you. I always get that not every team is just on the same level field playing field. Yes, there's parity in the NFL and all that, but every team makeup is so crazy. Like just talk about right there with the quarterbacks, the elite quarterbacks, and how they have answers to everything. Every player is different. Every scheme is different. Even if they come from the same family, they're cut from the same cloth. And why I'm saying that is not every team is built the same. A team like the Jets, one of the examples that you had, which has a fun young defense, has some other guys they have to pay and everything, but also just a lot of young talent on that team. They can have a guy like this that's in that kind of average to above average tier. It's a true starting quarterback in the NFL. So that's kind of where I'm at with it. So
everything how close the Jets were to the playoffs this year.
Yeah,
with Zach Wilson and like 3 games of Mike White.
Yeah, exactly. And it not every improvement. And I've learned this as being a Minnesota Timberwolves fan. We've talked about this with the Bengals offensive line going into free agency this year. Not every shit aspect of your team, and I'll say I'm sorry, but I'm going to call Zach Wilson shit at quarterback, doesn't have to go from shit to elite. An improvement can go from shit to average, poor to average. That's tiers of improvement. And if you're this close to making the playoffs and being a feisty playoff team, like a real playoff team, not like, oh, we got lucky, this is a fun story. It's like a real legit defense with some tools on offense. You get competency at the quarterback position. The whole team that's worth that money that you pay him. Those are worth it. Like if he gets you 2-3 wins, that's worth, I think, $10 million a year per win. That's the difference between having poor offense or poor quarterback play to average quarterback play, or even that better than average. Sometimes good. But I also think too, he's 31 years old. Also not like a 37-year-old quarterback.
31 years old.
31. Kirk Cousins, when he signed that big deal with the Vikings, was 30. Like, this doesn't happen.
And also, often. It's a perfect example. Okay. So I think that there is a difference between like the truly elite quarterback contracts and a quarterback for a guy like Derek Carr. Kirk Cousins just signed an extension that's for $35 million a year.
35. Yep.
Derek Carr's is for $40 million. It's not really.
No, it's
Think
funny.
about the guarantees in this. They can literally cut him at the end of the season because of that. So, and if you look at the other quarterback contracts that are being signed, Rodgers is in the $50 million range now. When Herbert and Burrow get those deals, they're going to be in like the $55 million range, I have to assume. It's also guarantees. Kyler Murray's contract makes it so Kyler Murray is your quarterback for the next 5 years. The $35 million you have to pay Derek Carr. Let's hypothetically in this scenario, let's say a team trades for Derek Carr's contract. Okay. Mm-hmm. You'd have to pay Derek Carr about $32 million against the cap in 2023. There's $7.5 million in dead money left on that deal after that. So let's say you convert some of that in 2023, get his cap number down to like 20-ish million, and then you have $20 million of dead money left of Derek Carr over the next 2 years. That's more than palatable to me.
Absolutely.
Because it gives you an out. That's what's important to me here. The argument that Derek Carr is not a good enough quarterback to win a Super Bowl, and that's why you shouldn't go after a quarterback like Derek Carr. It's not that cut and dry to me. It's not that binary. It's not that black and white. You want to compete with the Mahomes of the world, right? You need a Mahomes to do this. Guess what the Chiefs did before they went and got Patrick Mahomes? The Chiefs traded for Alex Smith.
Yes.
And trading for Alex Smith in the early part of the Chiefs years allowed them to be a very good competitive offense and a competitive team that was building to something.
Yep.
And then when they understood we have reached a certain ceiling with Alex Smith, they decided to make a trade up for Patrick Mahomes and change the course of their franchise.
Yep.
So if you're the Jets and you're the 15th pick and you're a competitive team, you just get a punt on the 2023 season?
Right. Oh, we can't get Mahomes. Sorry.
I think that there is value in being competitive. I think there's being value in being as competitive as you can be. So if you go get Derek Carr, if you're the Jets and you're a competitive team in 2023, and then even if you get to the 2024 draft and you think, and there's some scenario where a quarterback becomes available in that draft and you have to trade up for that quarterback, then hopefully you have enough financial flexibility to move on from Derek Carr for some sort of money. I don't think you should commit to Derek Carr for 5 years as a starter. If you can do this for 1 or 2 years and leave yourself some sort of off-ramp while understanding that eventually you may want to upgrade at the position, that type of quarterback is perfectly fine. It's what the Lions are doing with Jared Goff.
Yes.
No one's upset that what the Lions look like right now.
Same about money, right? Like, isn't that the
it's $30 million a year on the
30?
cap for the next 2 years. It was $30 million, and it's $30 million this year. And it's $10 million in dead money.
A little bit of inflation on that. That's kind of what you're doing.
The Lions are in a unique position because they own the Rams pick. Okay, so they potentially have a path to a quarterback if they want to draft one this year. But I think this concern and worry about how you get a quarterback if you land somewhere in the middle is kind of overstated.
Yeah.
Because let's say you're the Jets and you win 11 games next year and you make the playoffs and you lose to the Chiefs in the AFC Championship game. And you think, we're picking 24th and how are we going to get that guy to upgrade over Derek Carr and eventually get us over the hump? Let's look at the success stories for young quarterbacks over the last 5 seasons. Okay. I would say the best examples of quarterback success, young quarterback success over that time is Joe Burrow, Justin Herbert, Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, Jalen Hurts, and Lamar Jackson. I would say those are the 6 guys, okay? Think about where those guys were drafted and think about how Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes, who were the paradigm of quarterback success in the NFL, were drafted by teams that made the playoffs the year before.
Correct.
Lamar Jackson was the last pick in the first round. Jalen Hurts is a second-round pick. Justin Herbert was a top 10 pick, but he was the 3rd quarterback drafted in his own class. Yep. Joe Burrow was the number 1 pick, okay? Trevor Lawrence was the number 1 pick. Those guys are always going to be there. Those transcendent type quarterbacks. That is one path, but it's not the only path.
Right.
So I think that being competitive in the meantime and building towards something and finding a quarterback that can be that middle ground quarterback for you, it's okay to give him $30 million a year as long as you have some modicum of flexibility built into that. So if I can get Derek Carr for $25 million on the cap in 2023 and have a palatable dead money number after that, whether it's 20 million, 15 million, because if you go get that young quarterback, you're resetting your financial clock. If you have $15 million of dead money for Derek Carr and you're paying your quarterback $5 million for 1 year, it's totally fine to pay that position as you build the rest of the team.
Correct.
So I just think those guys have more value than we're we're giving them credit for. And if you're
I
doing
agree
it from
with you.
day one, if you're the Texans with the number 1 pick, take a rookie quarterback.
Right.
But if you're Washington and you're the Jets and
You're
you
no
have
man's
some
land.
money, but you don't
Yep.
have a path to do it right now, then even
Yep.
if you're the Jets right now and there is a path to trading up for a guy this year, getting a guy like Derek Carr for 1 year means you don't have to.
Right.
Patrick Mahomes sat on the bench for a year.
Yes.
I just think that for a creative team that is in a certain position right now, that sort of quarterback still has a lot of value. And if he somehow gets released because of how weird that situation is, I just think it's a rare opportunity for a team that has backed themselves into a corner. If you're a team backed into a quarterback corner, I legitimately think this is a decent solution for you.
Yeah, the viable starting quarterback. That's the thing. It's not everything has to be 1-0. He's a viable quarterback, and I think what you're talking about, the off ramp, be able to off ramp at any time. That's the important thing about team building, is not just one plan. And I think that's where people get caught up in it. You know, you never draft this position, you never sign this type of guy. Oh, you only sign these guys, only cheap contracts and everything. It's just always the ability to pivot. That's what resources gives you the opportunity to do. Like that draft picks and everything is like, yes, you got chances at the table or bets to make in the draft, but also ability to use those picks to do other things, to identify guys you do like and everything like that. So I think that's all it is. That's what the team building is. And like, I mean, what we've seen a kind of, maybe not the exact contract, but Jimmy G and the 49ers, which is such a similar parallel when they made their Super Bowl run against the Chiefs. Like that's like a parallel to what can happen here. It's so manageable. There's so many different ways to build a team. It's just that we always talk about the elite quarterbacks because they mask what's going on elsewhere with the team. They make an offensive line better. They make the receivers better. They make shitty coaching better. But the thing is, if you have other viable answers as far as personnel, teammates, coaches, all that type of stuff, then you can take a drop off in the quarterback play. It's just, that's the math. The variables are all going to be different for every team. So I think that's where the answer gets to, is that let's go from poor to average. And I think that has a ton of value for a team.